Villains are joining forces and rising up against Auradon, and we can't say that we really blame them. Hades, Audrey, Dr. Facilier, and Uma have a score to settle with Mal. But they're not the only ones who want to get even with the VK. We think Maleficent might be behind the sleep spell, and we've got the evidence to back it up.
Scepter!
Let's get one thing straight. Maleficent is literally considered as the most dangerous and feared villain of all time. So letting her spend the rest of her days as a puny little lizard just doesn't do her character any justice. We last see Maleficent in her human form at the end of the first Descendants movie. After a serious face-off with her daughter Mal, Maleficent shrinks to the size of the love in her heart, which, according to Fairy Godmother, is itty-bitty. Mal then asks Fairy Godmother,
"Is she gonna be like that forever?"
Well, forever is a long time.
She then goes on to point out that if Mal learned to love, so can Maleficent. Could Fairy Godmother's statement be foreshadowing the events of Descendants 3? We think it might be a possibility. We last see Maleficent, aka the itty-bitty lizard, in Descendants 2, when Mal puts her into a tiny box and takes her back to the Isle of the Lost. If there's one thing we can't help but wonder, it's what happened to the deadly lizard when Mal later escaped from the Isle. It's possible that Mal didn't have the chance to retrieve the lizard, seeing as Ben had been kidnapped and the VKs had to flee the Isle in the nick of time. So what in Auradon could have happened to Maleficent? Did she crawl out of the poorly secured box and wander the Isle until she found a familiar face? Since lizards tend to prefer living on the ground and often seek rocky areas to nest, Maleficent's cold-blooded instincts might have led her to Hades' quarters. Since Fairy Godmother basically confirmed that it was Maleficent who transformed herself into the lizard and not Mal, it's possible that Maleficent could turn herself back into a human. In fact, the only thing she needs to accomplish this is a little love. If the speculations are true and Hades is indeed Mal's father, this would mean that Hades and Maleficent have some history together. If these two villains somehow reconnected, Maleficent's heart may have started to love again, causing her to transform into her human self. There are plenty of ways Maleficent could have ditched her lizard skin if Mal forgot her on the Isle. If not Hades, then Uma could have easily raided Mal's room and found the lizard. If Maleficent cursed King Stephen and Queen Leah's daughter over not being invited to a christening, imagine what she would do to the person who betrayed her and kept her as a pet for months on end. Before we get into specifics, let's take a stroll down memory lane. It's a commonly known fact in Auradon that Maleficent is the most threatening villain in the world. She has her own display in the Museum of Cultural History due to her dark past and vile ways. You might think that Audrey's grandmother Leah overreacted when she first saw Mal.
And how have you stayed so young?
But that's not exactly true. After all, Maleficent did curse her daughter to prick her finger and die on the eve of her 16th birthday. A curse that would have landed if it had not been for Merryweather's divine intervention. Instead of imminent death, Princess Aurora was placed under an enchanted sleep, and so was her kingdom. When the fairies rescued Prince Philip from the dungeons, Maleficent's pet Raven informed the sorceress of their meddling. However, he was soon turned to stone by Merryweather. Despite her greatest efforts, Maleficent later perished at the hands of Prince Philip. Knowing this, it's understandable that Audrey and Leah didn't take a liking to Maleficent's daughter right off the bat. If you guys were paying close attention, you might have realized that a sleep spell and turning people into stone is something that's already occurred in Maleficent's story. So it would make sense for Maleficent to want to repay the favor. And how better to do that than turn her enemies into stone and place Auradon under a sleep spell? By now, it's no secret that Audrey is going to dabble in some villainous activity in Descendants 3. In the summer of 2018, pictures of an evil-looking Audrey began circulating the web, and fans were quick to point out that Audrey was holding Maleficent's staff. At first, we were led to believe that Chad encountered an evil Audrey in the Sherwood Forest when he left to help her at the end of Descendants 2. However, this doesn't exactly fit the timeline. After all, Audrey is seen holding Maleficent's scepter and wearing the Queen's crown, which were both reported stolen by the museum. So it's safe to say that Audrey steals these items after she returns from the Sherwood Forest. However, it's possible that she was placed under a spell when she was stranded in the forest, and this spell may have forced her to steal these two items and return them to their rightful owner. During the mystery trailer, who we are led to believe is Celia, that says,
"A great evil will have their revenge, and all in Ordon will pay forever."
Could Celia be referring to Maleficent? Shortly after the words "spells are made to be broken" flash across the screen. Could this be referring to the spell Maleficent was under? You know, the one that turned her into a lizard. On top of all of that, the trailer stresses that the only thing more powerful than Maleficent's scepter is Hades' ember. So does this mean that the VK's only chance at defeating Maleficent is by acquiring Hades' ember? Maleficent could easily possess Audrey's body if Uma lends her mother's seashell necklace. We saw evidence of this in Under the Sea, a Descendants story, when Uma took over Dizzy's body. So it's possible that Maleficent possesses the daughter of her arch-enemies and uses her as a pawn in her game. This could explain why Chad looks so terrified when standing next to Audrey in her villainous form. Because, well, she may look like Audrey, but she's Maleficent. And seeing as Uma and Mal have a score to settle, why wouldn't she help Maleficent get her revenge? On a side note, we'd like to point out a small detail that might play a huge hand in revealing Maleficent's master plan. In The Isle of the Lost, a Descendants novel, we find out that Maleficent's scepter, Dragon Eye, is cursed with a sleeping spell. Basically, if anyone but Maleficent touches Dragon Eye, they will be cursed to sleep 1,000 years. In the novel, Mal almost lets Evie touch the scepter, but she has a change of heart and grabs it before Evie can. Mal then falls asleep but soon wakes up. She realizes that she's immune to the spell because Maleficent's blood runs through her veins. But Audrey isn't related to Maleficent, so why can she touch Dragon Eye without being cursed? Well, a simple explanation for this is that Maleficent is possessing Audrey's body. And Dragon Eye knows this because they share a special bond. While it makes sense that Maleficent would want her scepter back, we're left wondering what the purpose of the crown is. Well, perhaps Maleficent wants to dub herself as queen when she successfully frees the villains and imprisons the heroes. While we do agree that Maleficent is the queen of darkness, we can't help but wonder how the crown will fit on top of her mighty horns. By now, we all know that a sleep spell is coming for Auradon, and we also know that Audrey will be affected by it. When we take a closer look at Audrey in the mystery trailer, we quickly notice that her hair has pink and purple faded highlights in it. This goes on to prove that the pink-haired evil Audrey exists much earlier in the timeline. If Audrey was indeed possessed by Maleficent, she wouldn't want to tell anyone, especially since she was the one who stole the scepter and the crown. But despite her greatest effort, she simply couldn't wash out all the hair dye. However, whether or not she remembers what happened is up for discussion. Regardless, the look on Audrey's face says it all. She looks like she feels guilty about something, and that's probably because a sleeping spell is spreading throughout Auradon. Later on in the trailer, we find out that Audrey is affected by the sleep spell. She's seen sleeping in her bed, Sleeping Beauty style. Hades seems to be trying to help by using his ember, and we see Queen Leah perched over Audrey's bedside, worried beyond belief. Cursing your enemy's daughter and granddaughter is totally something Maleficent would do. After all, revenge is all she's ever known. Speaking of revenge, there's someone else who wants to see Mal lose everything she's ever loved, and that's Uma. It's no secret that Uma wants to beat Mal at her own game, and it looks like she'll stop at nothing to see her dream come true. In Under the Sea, a Descendants story, Uma says, "That's right, Mal. Danger is coming for you, and you better keep your eyes open, because this time you'll never see where it's coming from." At the beginning of the trailer, though, Mal runs into a blue orb in the woods and believes it to be her father. Now, little is known about Mal's dad except for the fact that he's a human who Maleficent thinks is below her. Mal has often asked her mom about her father and received little to no information, so it's safe to say that this is a major blind spot for Mal. Having the chance to meet her father would be a major distraction, which could give other villains the chance to strike. Mal would never expect her mother and father to be the dangerous threats mentioned by Uma. So could opening the barrier to release Hades be a ploy that allows Uma and Maleficent to slip past the Isle's protective shield? It's very possible. If you think Uma and Maleficent are working together, leave a dragon and octopus emoji in the comment section. Descendants fans are somewhat positive that Hades is Mal's dad, but whether or not Hades is Mal's real father is still up in the air. Maleficent did tell Mal that her dad was a human. However, it makes sense that Maleficent would lie to her daughter to prevent her from knowing that she's a demigod. After all, Maleficent likes to be number one, and probably doesn't want to pass on the title to her daughter. But let's assume that Hades is, in fact, Mal's biological father. This makes us question if he'll truly be able to betray her when the moment arises. In the Meet Hades and Is It Hades trailers, we find out that the god of the underworld is up to no good.
Oh, you shouldn't have come here.
He doesn't feel like he belongs on the Isle and sees the heroes as the bad guys. He refers to Ben as a foolish prince and claims that the VKs have turned their backs on their own people. Saying that he's angry would be an understatement, and we all know what happens when Hades gets mad.
And you are wearing his merchandise!
But then again, Hades has never really met Mal or her friends, and it looks like he's going undercover to help the VKs save Auradon. So what happens when he spends time with the people of Auradon and realizes that they're not as evil as he thought they were? Despite being a major Disney villain, Hades appears to be misunderstood and could possibly end up choosing good like his daughter once did. He might end up having to choose between Maleficent and Mal, which isn't an easy choice. But hey, compromises do exist. We're so excited to watch Descendants 3 and can't wait to find out how the villains escape from the Isle and wreak havoc on Auradon. The final installment of the Descendants franchise is going to be amazing, and we'd love to see Maleficent as one of the threequel's big bads. So are you guys convinced that Maleficent will play a hand in the sleep spell? Let us know in the comment section down below. And feel free to tell us if you have any theories of your own. Give this video a big thumbs up if you think Mal will be fighting both her parents come Descendants 3. And be sure to subscribe to The Things for the latest Disney news. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.